closer to God Almighty. I'm on my knees again. I'm in need of a friend, but no God can save me now. Sits on my shoulder, slowly getting old. She's falling into the black. I'm never coming back. The lights in my head are blinding me.
Welcome to the second running of the CF Racing Tough 100 Extreme Enduro. Set in the scenic North Wales Hills, the Tough 100 is renowned as one of the toughest enduros in the UK. The Tough 100 starts with a 2-hour qualifying race taking place on the Saturday evening. This 2-hour race was on a 5-mile loop in very scenic sunshine where the riders battled away for those all-important front row grid positions. Sunday's Tough 100 format is simple enough. 10 laps of a 10-mile track makes 100 miles of tough riding. The first rider to complete that gets the checkered flag, with the time allowance for all riders being 5 hours. We spoke to some of our leading riders ahead of Saturday's qualifier.
I'm David Knight from the Isle of Man, 4-time world champion, 4-time American champion. And yeah, I've not ridden this particular event before. My brother rode it last year and said it was a cracking event, and I know Steve put some good events on, so yeah, what I've seen so far looks really good, so get the qualifying done with tonight and then focus on the main event tomorrow.
There will be a minute gap between the classes, or just about a minute. Get you all away before the next ones are back.
You know, you've got this 2-hour prologue tonight, which, you know, it's rows of 12, so as long as you're in the top 12, you're on the first row sort of thing. So it's not overly important, but you know what it's like when you get cracking on a race. You know, everyone wants to win, and so yeah. But I'll try and be careful a bit tonight because you've got to use the same tyres today as tomorrow. You know, and if it rains tonight or whatever, it's going to be important to have a good tyre. So a little bit of preservation really, you know, tonight. So try and get round at the slowest speed to, you know, to be up there really, and then yeah, tomorrow's like the main sort of thing to worry about. So just try and get through without damaging the bike, wrecking tyres and wrecking your body.
9:30 start, so everybody knows, in the morning.
Up here, a lot of the terrain looks pretty easy, you know, but when you ride it and you know how slick, like the grass is unbelievable how slippery it is, and you know, you're watching guys going around and you think, well, my neck, that, you know, they look like they're taking the time there. And it's not until we get on the bike and ride it, you're like, it's just literally like ice some places. So I expect that tomorrow, you know, in a lot of these gullies. And the rocks that are normally the problem, they might be actually a bonus tomorrow to get grip on as long as it don't rain. You know, if it rains, then it's going to be like glass everywhere. So no, it's definitely going to be tough. You know, it's got like the big hill over here. I know a lot of guys had trouble on that last year, and it's going to be, you know, no better this year. So there's a lot of places you can lose time. You know, you've just got to be sort of, I think, keep moving and try and just keep out of trouble. I think that's going to be the key.
Just two quick things I wanted to add in. Obviously, like last year, there's no tyre changes, same tyres for tomorrow. You can turn them round, but we will be looking to see if anyone's fitted a brand new tyre in the morning on the line, and it's a no-goer. Fueling. You're fueling yourselves tomorrow, but you can have help tonight.
It's Gary Jenkins in the experts. History is mainly trials background. Did that for a few years, came into Enduro. The last 2-3 years I haven't really been doing a lot of riding. Did a bit of trials, but it's just more fun now with family and work commitments. So I think this weekend is going to be tough for the 2 days racing and the weather, but let's go out there and have fun and see what we can do. Yeah, certainly going to be more demanding. It's a late finish, I believe it's 9:30 finish tonight. So it's a quick turnaround for an early start in the morning. So yeah, it's definitely you're going to be feeling it in the morning with a 2.5 hour race today and then a long day tomorrow. So yeah, definitely.
My name's Toby Harper, riding clubman. I've rode bikes since I've been a little kid, sort of been racing competitively, so sort of 4 or 5 years or so. Just fancied the tough one, I haven't done it yet, so thought I'd give it a go. It looks good out here today, looks quite hard as well. So yeah, first time I've seen the course here, I haven't raced it before, no, so it should be interesting. Yeah, so a couple of uphills, the climbs up around there look really difficult and that, but we'll just give it a go and hit it flat out.
My name's Lewis Slaney, riding in Clubman today. From Hampshire originally, been riding Enduro for probably about 2 years now. Came from a motocross background, so you might struggle a little bit in some of the extreme stuff, but yeah, hoping to make up some time on the trails. I managed to do a bit of a walk earlier on, so it looks like some pretty tough uphills, a few little gnarly bits in the river as well, so yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, a few people are a little bit nervous, even some chaps are dropping out of experts into Clubman for it.
Luke Flack in the expert class. Started racing with Steve years ago when I was about 7 or 8 on the 65s. Then I rode a few years with him, then gone away from it really and gone and rode the British Championship and now doing the European Championship, but just came back here to do a bit of a fun race I suppose really. I came here quite a few years ago but I can't really remember what it's like to be honest. Just a typical Welsh slate I suppose. It'll be good though, it's nice and dry, so that's the main thing. Everywhere in Europe's different, so it's one day you're in sand, next day you're in rocks, so everywhere's different, but Wales is the same everywhere you go. It's good though, you've got to learn to ride it and have respect for it, but it's good.
I'm Craig Reynolds, riding in experts. Well, I did it last year, really enjoyed it. Probably one of the best British events going, one of the best Steve runs I think personally. Good venue and, do you know what I mean, you get a good prologue tonight and then a good 5 hours time limit tomorrow to complete 10 laps, so good value for money, a good event. Challenging wise, I reckon probably that big hill behind us. Last year I had attempted it but I never got up it, so experts have to do it apparently, so hopefully I get up it.
Here we see some of our early footage from Saturday's qualifying race, and grabbing the lead early on are the Knight brothers. It was one Knight on the gas leading the KTM of David Knight in second place, and they charged away at the front of the experts. Some very nice warm evening sunshine here, but this stream section, one of the more technical parts of the 5 mile loop, and it catches out Tim Foreman who goes down. He was in third place but nonetheless nothing damaged, and he gets straight back on the bike, leading that charge of the experts just behind the Knight brothers. Conditions a little bit slippery through the rock section here. Of course, this stream with the rocks underneath, virtually no grip whatsoever. Here we see Craig Reynolds making his way through on the Yamaha, and he's looking in good form so far. As another rider almost lost the back end there, we see just how tricky the conditions are. Oh, and it catches out another rider. Now, of course, David Knight was talking about how slippery this grass is, and it catches out Dan Dicker in the clubman. So a nasty tumble, but it looks like he's all right, and gets straight back on the bike. Regains his composure, and he's got to contend with the stream section now, but paddles his way through, keeps the momentum up, and he recovers very quickly from his mistake. This track a 5-mile loop, and some of the track used for tomorrow's Tough 100, although this is something of a prelude to tomorrow's action. The track not quite as difficult as the main Tough 100 circuit, but nonetheless a tough proposition for the riders. And as more of our club and runners make their way through, you can see it's just a case of trying to keep the momentum going, and lots of paddling going on the back wheels, scrabbling for grip through there. And oh dear, another rider goes down then. You've got to give him 9.5 for effort there, but he's okay. Gets back on the bike, and he'll be underway with the qualifier. Join us again after the break for more qualifying action. Welcome back to the CF Racing Tough 100, and here we continue with our recap of Saturday's 2-hour qualifying race, with the riders battling for those all-important qualifying positions, and certainly for the likes of our top expert riders, a front row start is very important indeed, but certainly for many of our clubman and novice riders and the sportsman contingent as well, just getting around the track is the hardest part, because as we can see, this is the prelude for tomorrow's racing. But nonetheless, it's a very tough circuit indeed. Number 96, Matthias Svensson, makes his way through the stream, followed by a whole contingent of midfield runners. We've got some of our novices in there as well, and some of the sportsmen, the leaders, already starting to make their way around to lap some of these slow riders. And as we'll see a bit later on, that can be a tricky part for the front runners, getting their way through some of the slow riders. But as you can see, Saturday's qualifier in warm sunshine, although that grass is very slippery indeed. And again, it's just a case of getting through that stream. Very, very slippery, and grip is just an absolute premium, and certainly some of the less experienced riders just struggling to make their way through. And here we'll see the difference in skill as David Knight, our race leader, makes his way through. He's taken the lead from One Knight, who was the early leader. And Knight absolutely scything his way through the brook. Here we see it's just a case of keeping that momentum going. As soon as the bike stops, all the momentum goes, and Knight here showing how it should be done. And there's our man, Matthias Svensson, number 96 again, paddling his way through. And there we see another rider coming to halt. Oh, it's Svensson this time. He takes a bite of the grass bank there, but he's okay. And here we see again, as soon as the riders lose that momentum, the bike just spins to a halt, and it's just a case of picking himself up and getting back into the action. And here we see some of the determination on the riders' faces, concentration as they look to try and pick their way through. That is number 6 in there, Aled Price, one of the front runners, and he's having trouble getting through some of the slow riders. As our man with the Mohican, number 50, Leon Dean, pauses for a moment, gets back on the power and paddles his way out of the stream. Oh, not so good for another rider though. That's number 134, our novice rider, Hayden Rainford, who goes down. And he'll be getting some very wet feet, one would think, after picking his way out of the brook, but looks like Hayden's okay. Fires the bike back up, he's looking for a gear, and I think he's got the bike underway again. There he goes, sends the water flying, and Rainford makes his way out of the brook. Bit of paddling there, but he's okay. And here we see the contrast in the track here on Saturday. We've got the really tricky sections in the brook, and then we go to this more motocross style section. And we see here now David Knight, the race leader, showing how it should be done, attacking his way motocross style through the section, sending the dust flying. We've got the jumps and this uphill step-up jump there that Knight crests with ease. The riders making their way out of the stream. Here we see number 39, Nathan McLean, standing up motocross style there, making the bike do all the work, and really does call for different types of riding throughout the lap. Here we're going for a more motocross style, keeping the rhythm through the corners. And the riders coping very well with these conditions as they make their way through. Of course, Saturday determining where the riders will start on the grid tomorrow. There's 10 rows of riders, and certainly for the likes of the experts and some of our top clubman riders, they'll be looking to get as far up the field as possible. This could be one of the guys in contention tomorrow. Number 9, Gary Jenkins on the Sherco machine, looking strong as he makes his way through. We spoke to Gary earlier, of course. And this looks like one of our top clubman riders, number 28, Brad Lilburn. And Brad ran very well on the Saturday qualifying session. He is currently in a front row position amongst all the experts, so that'll be very good for Brad. But here we see once again the real contrast in style in the riders as they make their way through the motocross section. Some riders really attacking those corners like you would on a motocross track. And this, of course, in sharp contrast to that stream section where the riders having to paddle their way through, almost trials riding their way through. So the riders do battle through the motocross section. They make their way through, the dust flying, the conditions very, very good indeed on the Saturday. And David Knight, the race leader, coming through to complete another lap, making it look cool, calm and collected. You have to say that David Knight is the real favourite for this year's event. And Knight charging away from his brother One Knight as he looks to win the qualifying race. A great prelude, he would say, to tomorrow's event. Number 15, Luke Flack, another one of our front runners, making his way through, and much like Knight, really attacking that motocross section, carrying the speed through there. So the riders now making their way through as the light starts to fade. The race running from 7 until 9, so daylight starting to fade. And this is one of the most technical parts of the course, this really steep uphill section. And we were saying before how slippery that grass is. So this is going to be a real test for the riders, but David Knight goes through and shows us how it should be done. So no problems for Knight. He goes back into the stream and laps another rider. But further on down the field, it might be tricky for some of the riders. Now this here looks like it could be Charlie Frost, last year's winner. Now Charlie Frost had trouble getting to the track on Saturday and had to start in last place, so he's got a lot of work to do to make his way through and get one of those all-important front row positions. Brad Burrell, number 64, almost makes it to the top of the bank. Well, the bike does, but Burrell halfway down, but the volunteers very quickly on hand to pull that Husqvarna back to the top of the bank. So Burrell will have to scramble to the top here and get himself back into the reckoning. As one rider partly demolishes the course, but he gets through okay. Steve Townsend lining himself up for the bank, and there he goes. Oh, the bike goes almost into the spectators there, but Townsend's okay. He'll get straight back on the bike. And here we see James Meston making his way through the brook. The riders coming out of those water sections of the track, very slippery indeed, and it catches out number 105 there. Dan Griffiths just lost the front end, but keeps the bike running and gets straight back into the action. So the Saturday qualifier drawing to a close, the riders looking to get as far up the field as possible. The riders setting off in groups of 12. So certainly for the front runners, they'll need to be, ideally of course, on the front row of the grid to get away front, have a clean track in front of them and try and dictate their own pace at the start of the race. But certainly even for some of the back markers, this, oh, as another one goes there, we see some more of the trouble on the hill. Certainly for some of the riders at the back of the field, it's just a case of getting round and completing the course. But, oh, there's more carnage on the hill, there's more riders getting in trouble, and here comes number 86, Rhys Gethin, who pauses for a moment. Lines himself up, and Gethin has a go. Oh, but he gets stuck like many of the others and tumbles back to the bottom of the hill. More riders making their way up. Oh, as poor Rhys Gethin almost had his bike collected by another rider. And here we see the ruts on there, just how tricky that part of the course is. That looks like it could be number 2. Charlie Frost, last year's winner, who makes his way through, and he got bulked by a back marker there. But Frost keeping his composure. He's had a really tough day as more riders in trouble, but Charlie Frost, he's had to fight his way through. It looks like he's got into the top 12, so as we go into the closing stages, more riders in trouble, but no problems for David Knight, number 1, who, as many people predicted, takes the checkered flag in the qualifying race, and he'll start on the front row of the grid.
It won't make much difference really, but I just felt, just saying to you then, that's why I ride a motorbike. Like, that track there was absolutely brilliant fun, you know. You weren't looking at your clock like a lot of races, you're like, oh, how long have I got left? It was like, the only thing I was panicking about is my tyre, wrecking my tyre for tomorrow. And honestly thought I'd wrecked it, because I was taking it easy on all the slatey bits, trying to, you know, but on the hills and stuff, on the grass, you've got to spin it. And I just thought I've wrecked it, and then come in and looked at it, it's like brand new, so that's a bonus. But just so much fun, like a bit of everything, really fast stuff, really tight, slippery stuff. You know, I had one little crash just trying to pass a guy, and I was in the wrong gear, and I just tried going, and the front end went, I just fell over. I got stuck over there trying to be a clever bugger and pass a load up the inside, and it was like sheet ice. But no, I was saying before, like, I'd like to find a man that could go as fast, and I'm not trying to be big-headed, but when I get on a track like that, there'll be no one quicker anywhere in the world. It's brilliant, you know. That's when you're going around with a smile on your face like that, that's when I'm done, you know. I'm dangerous for people, so I really had a good crack then. Hope tomorrow's the same.
Charlie Frost in the expert class. Well, with Thursburg last week, I've just been manic with work during the week as well. Not much time to work on the bike, so it's a bit of a last-minute sort of thing this morning with tyres and changing chains and whatnot. So we got on the motorway, we hit a load of traffic. So the ETA on this app now said about 7:20, and I was thinking I want to make the start line. So we managed to get down to 10:07. We rocked up, and everyone was on the start line, so it was a bit of a rush then. So ran to sign on, got my numbers. With that, the first line went off, so the experts have gone. I got my kit on, whatnot, and then with that, the whole group had gone. So I was about 2 minutes behind the last row to go off. So just made it hard work from the start. So I got going, kept an easy pace. A lot of loose rocks out there, which made it a bit tricky. But back markers was a thing. There's a few technical hills in there, so I had to pick my way through them. I got going, fueled up a bit earlier than I should have done. I think I had about half an hour to go. I think I was up to about 12th or 11th place, and on the last lap, Steve told me to go about 40 seconds quicker to get front row, so I pushed and then managed to come in 9th position, so gaining 2 places on the last lap. So going from back of the pack by 2 minutes to come in front row for tomorrow, I'm dead chuffed for that. So obviously with David Knight and Ewan being here and a few other top riders, it's going to be interesting for tomorrow, especially with a few climbs being put in. It'll change things up, so yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully with it being the expert hill, obviously people get through it, but still you never know, someone can mess it up and it causes a bit of a backlog. But be interesting. I'm going to have a look now myself and see what it's like, and look forward to tomorrow morning.
Okay, so we're at the Tough 100, second running of the event. It's a beast of a venue, it's a beast of a course. Last night we had a 2-hour qualifying, which was tough enough, you know, everybody really enjoyed it. David Knight was on fire, he was really flying last night. Be interesting to see now today as we move on to the big 10-mile lap with all the extreme sections in. And now this rain, which is unforecast, it's going to be a super tough event today. Experts only are doing some of the big hills, so that'll be nice to see how they cope with the conditions. And yeah, it's going to be, there's a 5-hour cut-off point for the lesser classes than the experts. I expect the top riders, David Knight, if he has a trouble-free ride and he's the winner, I would imagine 3 hours, around the 3-hour mark. So there is 2 hours more for the other riders to try and get to that finish and get the award.
My name's Sean Jones and I'm a racing clubman. I race regularly with war events. I'll do almost every event with them. So thought came here last year, beating my sister, and blew my clutch up. Didn't have no clutch, so I had to retire through half of the event. So came back this year just to try and finish it, try and get a gold medal. Yeah, the weather's gotten a bit trickier today, isn't it? With the rain, it's going to be seriously slippy on some of the fields. With the campers, you'll have to watch the back of the bike, not sliding out.
Matt Connell in clubman class today. See how things get on. Yesterday the qualifying was very good. The track was awesome. Just took it at a nice steady pace. I got 46 or something like that, so it was good. But the track was mega yesterday, so looking forward to today. It's going to be a bit greasy out here, but you know, we'll see how we get on.
So my name's Nick Barrow, I'm in novice.
Paul Cunningham in novice as well.
Did first season last year, I haven't really done much since. But yeah, just love war events, they're fantastic, they're brilliant. Yeah, always a good venue from Steve, always good fun.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I did, the first one I did was the Sucker Punch, that was a couple of years ago. That was fun, that was, and then we've done quite a few since. Yeah, they're really good events, rideable, tough but rideable. I think today's going to be interesting.
I'm Martin Chitley, I'm sportsman class.
My name's Rhys Giffin, I'm sportsman class.
I've been doing a lot of the extreme events like to Follow Little Brother, Team Extreme and all them, so I just fancied the chance this year. I'm doing this one, didn't do it last year, just came and watched, so it's a bit up the game this year a bit, so last year, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, I thought the qualifying went okay. I'm an architect by trade, and this is my first race in 6 years since I've got out of college, so...
Had a good qualifier really to the circumstances of what's happened to me. The sprockets came off and broke in pieces, to be honest with you, on the last lap. Other than that, it went quite well.
It was okay. I lost my clutch lever on the last lap, so it was a bit of a challenge getting back to the finishing line, but I did it, so I was happy.
Yes, definitely it's going to be more of a challenge, especially on these hills. It's going to be quite a challenge, so we'll see how it goes.
Flat out, stay away.
Sunday's racing now well and truly underway with the Knight brothers, David Knight and One Knight, leading the way. But as we can see, conditions very different indeed from Saturday's qualifying race, and this motocross section, which was a dust bowl yesterday, really is slippery in places. So there is the third place man in his early stages, Charlie Frost, and also in there as well, number 9, the machine of Gary Jenkins, who goes charging through. But here we see this tyre section, one of the early obstacles, and this section very difficult in the dry, almost impossible in the wet, as Declan Richard makes his way through into the motocross section. And Sam Grodno in there as well, with some more of our front-running riders. Alan Price in there as well, one of the riders looking victory this year, picking his way through. But here we see as some of our clubmen and small-run riders making their way through, just how difficult this section is. They go through the rocks and the riders pretty much single file over the tyres through into the motocross section, and things looking very difficult in these early stages, especially for the riders at the back here. And already some of the less experienced riders towards the back of the field already dropping out. So this one could turn into a race of attrition. Here we see the riders lining up for a go at this tyre section, and you can see just how slippery and difficult this is. Riders lining up for another go and to paddle their way over just in case really of getting the momentum as Paul Cunningham, oh, he almost makes it, but flips the bike and down he goes. Cunningham hits the ground hard and has to recompose himself for another go. But David Knight scrambles up the hill with ease, and One Knight not too far behind in second place. Alan Jones leads the riders over the tyres. You can see them all queuing up to have a go at this, and once they've done the tyres, they've got that log that's strategically placed. Oh, as 77, Jason Clark bites the dirt hard, but he's all right. You can see just how difficult things are. Oh, as 25, Andrew Rayner takes a tumble. And number 60, Andrew Sharp, leaps over the tyres, and a hefty tumble for him there, but he's all right. And you can see the marshals from War Events on hand here to help the riders as Andrew Rayner lines up for another go, and this time goes up, but minus the bike. Another one of our sections here, this really difficult, gnarly downhill section. And as the riders were talking about yesterday, this surface can be like sheet ice, even in the dry, so yet more difficult in the wet. There's Alan Jones, the rider we saw earlier, and he's looking strong so far in these early stages. As somebody has a paddle down the hill, but as we can see, the downhill section really testing the rider's skill as, oh, 102 has a moment there, but survives well. Difficult moments for the riders. They've got to paddle their way on that gnarly downhill section, trying to keep the momentum going. That's pretty much how it should be done. Just keep the bike moving forward down the hill. This driving rain making things difficult. Oh, as Andrew Sharp goes down, the rider we saw coming to grief on the tyre section, I think he will have to recompose himself and have another go later on. Charlie Goddard, 66, leads us through into the woodland section here, where it's a case of trying to find those right lines, just keep the bike moving. And it's all just about keeping going at this stage. The Tough 100 living up to its reputation, and the rain making things yet more difficult for the riders. Riders winding their way up the hill, grip very difficult indeed, and Matthias Svensson goes down, the rider we saw yesterday in the qualifying races. So with the woods, of course, the rain not so much of a problem as such, but nonetheless it's still very difficult indeed as our race leader David Knight makes his way through. Looks like he goes for a tear-off and up on the pegs. Looking very smooth indeed. This uphill section even catching out the best of them as Stuart Story goes down now. He's running in the top 20. So you see the slate on the side of the hill making things very difficult for the riders, and a lot of guys now opting to park at the bottom of the hill, have a look way up the section. So some riders opting to charge straight up, but number 34 there, Declan Richards, pausing for a moment to psych himself up, get the right lines. And let's see how he gets on. So Declan Richards waits for a clearing now. He wants to make sure there's no fallen riders in his path. And throws the goggles to the cameraman. And here we go, Declan Richards on the power, charges up the hill, and that's how it should be done. Just keep the momentum going. And as yet more riders drop out of the race, the spectators are flocking to this tyre section, which is continuing to catch riders out. And as the rain continues to tumble, it's getting more and more difficult, and those marshals on the tyre section grabbing those fallen bikes. Here comes One Knight, number 3 on the gas, showing how it should be done. Problems there for 62, Ben Jordan, who goes down. Yet another one of these really tough uphill sections, but the front-running riders really coping with that with ease. And there's Luke Flack, still in third place, charging down the fire road, trying to keep up with the Knight brothers, who lead the way. And looking at this downhill section, the riders who are still going coping very well so far. You can see the driving rain as they come down the hill. Oh, there's a hefty tumble there for Matt McGinty, number 82, who goes down, but looks like he's okay. And David Knight here looking to take a smoother line down the hill. It's a bit slippery on the grass, but Knight keeps his composure and looks very smooth indeed as he charges away at the front. Other riders now opting for the more regular line there on that little drop-down section, as does one Knight in second place. Charging through the rain as riders making their way down, and this Tough 100 certainly living up to its billing. Join us after the break for more action. Welcome back to the Tough 100, brought to you with CF Racing, where driving rain is making conditions virtually impossible. And as we get to these closing stages of the race, those who are still on the track are the hardy riders who are looking just to finish the race. And here we see one of the toughest parts of the track, this relentless uphill climb, as one rider makes his way slowly but surely up the hill. This uphill section is incredibly steep and is virtually unrideable, but it does cut out a great section of the track, and for those riders who can make it up the hill, they will save an awful lot of time. And this rider, as we see, is cresting the top of the hill as he charges his way round to start another lap. And as the camera cuts away, we see just how tough the rain is and how difficult the conditions are. Back into the woods, and we see the riders coping very well with the conditions, having to paddle their way through. It's a little bit drier, of course, with the trees covering some of the track, so not quite as slippery, but still plenty of tree roots and things to catch out the unwary. At this stage of the event, it's really a case of survival and keeping going and just trying to complete the race. Of course, the riders have 5 hours to try and complete as many laps as possible, and less than 10 riders looking set to complete 10 laps at this stage, just showing how tough the conditions are. So very, very few of the riders looking set to complete the 100 miles. This just goes to demonstrate how tough the event is, coupled of course with this driving rain which has been carrying on for the duration of the event. And oh, a bit of a spectacular dismount there for Matt Connell, number 38, but he's all right and gets back on the bike as the rest of the field trying to make their way through. And there's another spectator on hand to try and help these riders out. Number 14, Luke Fisher, just loses the back end, but I think he's kept the bike running. Grabs the clutch and he should be okay. And Keenan Sharp, number 69, oh, goes down with a spectacular leap, and Keenan Sharp quite far down the field, but looking set to finish the event. And at the moment, of course, if you see more riders going over the tyres, but not as many as they were at the start of the race. At the moment, of course, so many riders dropping out of the event. Craig Reynolds, number 7, making his way through. Reynolds currently in the top 10. At the moment for these riders, the ones left on the track now, it's all about survival really, and these riders really want to just finish the event. And that uphill section we saw yesterday was difficult enough. Now it's virtually impossible, and it's caught out number 80, Carlo Franchi, who has insult added to injury, gets clipped by the bike and has to extract himself out. A marshal very quickly on hand to give him a hand. Conditions now virtually impossible. The riders in the midfield, so many have dropped out, and these guys just looking to get back to the finish as yet another rider gets into trouble on the uphill section, and a spectacular dismount. The riders that are left are coping very well with the tyre section. One Knight, number 3, currently in second place, past one of the back markers and trying to keep up with David Knight, who leads the race by quite some margin at the moment. Luke Flack and Aled Price also in there as well. Here's David Knight, the race leader, and still showing some great pace at the front as he charges through the woods. Those midfield riders paddling away earlier on. One Knight in second place, and both the race leaders really keeping the momentum up through the woods. Luke Flack in third place, number 15, charging through and looking strong in these closing stages. He looks likely to complete the full race distance. Aled Price a little bit further behind in fourth place. It's been a good day so far for Aled Price. And one of our front-running clubman riders, Brad Lilburn, in seventh place. The leading clubman is number 35, the machine of Grant Thompson, who's a bit further down the track. But it's not really been the best of days for Charlie Frost. Of course, he had troubles yesterday when he had to fight his way through the field in the qualifying race, and now is a couple of laps down and only just in the top 20. Tom Simpson, number 95, here he goes. Oh, he's just lost the back wheel, and well, he's got a smile on his face though, so he's still enjoying himself even though he's having some trouble trying to keep that bike upright. Back in the woods we see Brad Lilburn still there. He's currently in seventh place. And there is a rider on an 85cc machine, usually for the youth riders. That's Curtis Gross, and that smaller machine might be an advantage in these closing stages. Less weight and a good power to weight ratio, so that might be helpful for him. He's running well so far. Gross in the top 20. We just saw Aled Price, number 6, going through. Number 15, that's the third place rider, Luke Flack, coping well with the stream. As we saw this section yesterday, it's very tough and very slippery indeed. Of course, the entire track really is, grip is at a premium here. You can see the concentration in the eyes there of number 7, Craig Reynolds, as he makes his way through the stream, keeping that momentum, keeping the bike going. Number 2 there, Charlie Frost. He's a couple of laps down. It's not really been his day, as we were saying, but he's still keeping going. And at this, in these final stages, the riders looking just to complete the event. Well over half of the riders appear to be out of the race at this stage. And here we see number 27, Barney Thurgood, making his way down the hill. And the concentration in the riders' eyes, they've got to pick their way through that rut. And you can see just how slippery it is. So just a case of keeping the bike going. And there we see number 1, David Knight, going through to complete another lap, splashes through the stream, picks his way through the ruts and charges through to start what looks like it's going to be his final lap. Number 3, One Knight in second place. And these conditions making things very difficult as Aled Price in third place. The riders at the moment much later than the forecast time from Steve Ireland, and because the conditions are so slow out there, it's taken the riders a bit longer to complete the 10 laps. Number 43 stops for a smile. That's Stuart Story we saw go down earlier, but he's looking good so far, still in the top 20. David Knight picks his way down into the woods for the final time. So for many of these riders, they'll be glad that it's all over at the end of this one. It's been a very tough few hours, and the riders, of course, have got 5 hours to complete the course. There we see Brad Lilburn again, and it even catches out the best of them. The 8th place rider, Craig Reynolds, and he was looking strong before, but makes a small mistake, gets back on the bike, and is lapped by One Knight. So it looks at the moment that Craig Reynolds will only complete 9 laps. Charlie Frost is currently 3 laps down, and he is down in 18th place, last year's winner, still charging away. But at the front, David Knight is looking strong, and the checkered flag beckons for number 1, David Knight, who takes the second running of the CF Racing Tough 100 and is greeted at the finish line by Steve Ireland, the event organiser from Ward Events.
Awesome ride, bang on the 4 hours, spot on.
I'm glad it's finished. I said to you last night it was really good fun, you know, but that was hard work that I've never, in all my years of racing, I don't think I've ever ridden anywhere as slippery as that. You know, that the grass, like, it's hard to explain. It was just, in places it was just like sheet ice, you know, you couldn't get any grip, you didn't know where to go, where there was powder, but as the rain came down, the powder turned to like glass. So then you had to get on the grass, So it was completely different from last night, but tough event. There's not many people going. I know that, like, you're riding around, there's less and less people, but no, I loved it. What a cracking event, big lap. When I'd done about 3 laps, I thought, I've got 7 more to do yet, you know, and 3 laps took a long time, so I think just under 4 hours then for 10 laps for 100 miles, so yeah, it's, you know, it's a shame really that the rain came down, because it would have been so much fun like last night, that track, but there's nothing we could do. He left pretty much everything in. I think they took this big hill out which you never got up it now, and there was another climb that was getting bottlenecked, and that's pretty much it. He left the rest in because the experts did, you know, a few different places and what the rest did, so yeah, it's I'm happy. I felt pretty good on the bike. I felt fitter than I have done, so it's getting there slowly, you know. I forget I had a new hip in December, so I can't expect too much, and that's probably the best I've felt, so it's good.
Yeah, not bad actually. Got a good start, which is not like me, and just stayed with David for a little bit, and then thought, right, I'm not bothered trying to stay with him. And then I got stuck in a gully up at the back there, and I seen David in front of me, and he was stuck, so I thought, well, don't panic. And then the other boys started going past, they pulled it out, so I was like, oh no. So I went a bit hard then, trying to catch up again, but once I got settled, I was alright then, it was good. You can't go that fast because I can't see where I'm going, but that spoiled the fast bits a bit, but no, the tight technical bits, it's better for me when it's wet and slippy. I've only rode it once at home, 2 weeks ago when we picked it up, so it was a brand new bike from the ground up, and it really helped me. It worked for me at the end because I was that knackered. The bike would sort of carry me around, which is what you want in events like this, really.
I got the worst start possible, really. I was last off the line, then in the motocross track I managed to pick quite a few off, and then I got behind June up on the top moor and then followed him for a bit, and then after that he got past me, and then I got stuck behind a couple of back markers, so he just seemed to get away. He's getting a little bit more traction though. I think he eats more pies than I do, so yeah, he's going well though, fair play to him, he's good.
So that draws to a close the second running of the CF Racing Tough 100. Wet weather certainly making conditions very, very tough for the riders, but David Knight emerging as the runaway victor. We hope you've enjoyed this event, and we look forward to next year's race.